All right, welcome to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have a huge show today. Three different topics we have: educating youth on gun violence, banning lithium batteries, and healthcare coverage for all. As you can see, we have much to get to, so stay tuned. Today's verdict starts right now. Okay, welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We're here with Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, Assembly member. How are you doing today, Jessica?
I'm good, David. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. So today it's important that when we talk about this topic, coverage for all. Maybe you could tell the viewers a little bit about it.
Great. So Coverage for All is a bill that would allow for immigrants who are otherwise ineligible for health care, the Essential Plan, which is the New York State plan that came out of the Affordable Care Act, but would otherwise be eligible due to all other income requirements up to $250, 250% of federal poverty level are excluded. This would include them in the plan. So this is a really important thing. I've been advocating for healthcare my entire life. I came from the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health, working at the intersection of immigrant health and reproductive justice and, ensuring everyone could be healthy. We have an opportunity right now to do this, to expand the Essential Plan to include undocumented people at 250% of poverty level and without a cost to the state by amending.
I understand that there's federal funds, $2 billion that's been untapped. How is that possible? Because that usually doesn't happen in terms of monies that you can get to that you can't. What's going on with that?
Yeah, essentially, there's something called the Essential Plan Trust, and that trust generates a surplus. And we have a $2 billion surplus that can only be used for coverage of healthcare. So what we need to do as a state is submit a waiver called the 1332 waiver. It's a state innovation waiver to the federal government to ask the federal government for permission to use those funds to expand eligibility for undocumented communities.
Now, what I found interesting is that there are many undocumented immigrants who are outside of New York City, the farmers in Rochester, those types of individuals. And they're not far from New York City, and yet they're not given the coverage. Is there any pushback against this? Because you would think this would be, naturally it's not going to cost us any money. And it's important to get those individuals certainly get them some kind of healthcare, given what happened with COVID and everything. Is there any pushback at all on this, or no?
COVID shined a light on the inequities that we have in our system, and we lost 2,000, at least as far as we know, over 2,000 undocumented people simply because they did not have health care. So, it is a win-win for the state. It allows us to cover more people. We have support from labor unions, from organizations, from the Business Council, the Greater Hospital of New York. New York City mayor issued a memo of support and wrote a letter to the governor to do this. She committed to doing this last year. So we were pretty astounded when she submitted the initial waiver, which didn't include undocumented community. But we have 30 days, a 30-day comment period where we flooded comments of over 1,500 comments from people saying that we need to amend that waiver. And then now the administration has an opportunity, the governor has an opportunity to amend the waiver and resubmit. By federal law, they need this period. So we're really hoping they'll do so.
Why does it seem that the governor has really dragged her feet on this? I don't understand the reasoning for it, because, again, this is monies that's available. It's not like it could be used for anything else. Mm-hmm. What's the impetus? Is it a bad look to have everybody documented? I don't understand it.
I'm just as confounded as you are, David. Illinois and California did it with their own state dollars. but Washington State and Colorado did it through this waiver. So we know this waiver is effective. We know that it works, that it can be improved. I'm really astounded by not understanding why she didn't do this in the first place, but we're hopeful again that we're able to make the amendments and resubmit the waiver.
What else have you been working on in your district? Give the viewers a little bit of a.
Well, during budget season, there's been a number of issues that impact actually children across the whole state. One of our big priorities have been universal school meals. We know this is another issue during COVID. There was a waiver where the federal government was covering free breakfast and lunch for all children in every school across the state and across the country. That was lifted in September. So at the new year, there were children that never knew they had to pay for lunch because, they were in first grade. And that's been a real hardship on families. We're not out of this pandemic. So that's one of the priorities that would help everyone across the state.
I understand. I did read this the other day, that they took empty trays and they brought it up in front of the administration to demonstrate the lack of free food, if I remember.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm championing that with Senator Hinchy upstate. So it's a downstate upstate partnership. It has over 80 people on the bill, including 16 Republicans. So it's a bipartisan issue. It's about feeding our children. We cannot teach a hungry child. So we know this is an effective program. New Mexico just passed this law just a couple days ago.
Are we trying to find money in the budget? Is that where was that?
Yeah, it's a budget ask. But again, a really small percent of a $227 billion budget. It would only cost $280 million. So that's a teeny fraction of a giant budget, but could serve so many children and families across the state.
What else? What else you have going on? What else is cooking?
Well, yeah, there's a lot happening. We're fighting for quite a number of issues. One other priority that I've been fighting for is SNAP. We've seen skimming happen where people take their SNAP cards, go purchase their food, and that the money had been stolen from theirs. And there's been thousands of cases. We think over $5 million have been skimmed from families who need it most. So we're also fighting to make sure we can get that money reimbursed to those families, and we have to upgrade that card.
Who takes that money? I don't understand.
Oh, people who are thieves. I mean,
just steal
fraudulent. Yeah, it's fraud. It's fraud, sadly, and this is like the most vulnerable communities who, again, have an EBT card, a card with a chip, so they could purchase food, and they've been skimming devices put on some of these machines, and they'll go back and find out some person in California had taken all their money, and there's little to no recourse. And that's something I'm fighting for too, because so many people in my district have experienced that across the city, across the state. We need to make sure those families are made whole again.
Well, we want to thank you very much. We know how busy you are, Jessica. So
thank you.
You'll come back, you'll visit us and give us an update about what you've been working on.
And hopefully good news.
All good news. Hopefully good things you're working on. Coverage for all. All right, stay with us. Today's Verdict has so much more right after this.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back to Today's Verdict. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesh. We have returning with us, Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz, friend to the show. I think probably one of our favorite guests. Assemblyman, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's great to be here again.
All right. Well, today we're talking about lithium batteries. I just saw something recently in the news where there was a fire on an airplane because a lithium battery that was in one of the overhead compartments caught on fire, and there was smoke throughout the cabin, which terrified me, by the way. What is happening with these batteries? Are there any regulations on them? What's the present situation?
Well, first of all, the number of fires that are taking place as a result of some of these lithium-ion batteries have increased. It's quadrupled in the past year, and it keeps going up and up. And these batteries, I mean, they're everywhere. They're in our phones, they're in all kinds of appliances. But the ones we're really talking about in particular are the ones that are on these electric bikes and vehicles like that. We've heard just the other day there was another fire in the Bronx where I think several people were injured. It happened, I think, off the Grand Concourse, and The problem isn't the batteries as such. The problem deals with basically with used batteries, to put it very simply. Um, we have two pieces of legislation to try to address the issue, and the bottom line for the legislation is to save lives, because people have died from these fires, and we keep hearing about them more and more often. You know, the lithium-ion batteries are increasingly ubiquitous in society today, from rechargeable laptops to phones to e-bikes and so many other things. The two pieces of legislation that I've introduced, along with State Senator Liz Krueger in the State Senate, deal with two issues. One is that it would require one of the four, I'll call them rating agencies, for lack of a better word, to give its quote good housekeeping seal of approval on the batteries. The rating agencies include underwriters, laboratories, international. Let me say that again. International Electrical Commission, the American National Standards Institute, or the Society for Automotive and Aerospace Engineering. These four agencies are the one looking at any appliance, really. And so we have legislation to ensure that the battery approval. But the other thing is the issue of second use lithium-ion batteries, and those are used in the electric bicycles, the electric scooters, or limited use motorcycles. And we don't want that at all. They shouldn't be sold, they shouldn't be bought, and there would be fines for using those. Those are the ones where the problems really lie.
Well, how do you find out, almost like a used mattress? Someone sells a used mattress, has bed bugs all over it, but you don't know, who's used the mattress before you did. How do we regulate the selling of used batteries? I mean, how do you do that? They could be sold everywhere, from eBay to Craigslist to anywhere. How do you avoid it?
Well, you're absolutely right. They can be, and that's why the bills that we have provide for fines, and I think significant fines. I think that the second violation, in terms of the second-use batteries, would result in a fine of $1,000, and most people don't want to keep paying fines of $1,000. So what we do is we try to create a disincentive for selling and for buying those batteries. And that's really the bottom line. We gotta prevent people from dealing with these batteries. So we want to make it so that they'll be, no one wants to touch them.
Where's the pushback coming from? There's always pushback somewhere. Who's giving a little bit of a hard time here with respect to passing this type of legislation?
Well, so far we haven't gotten pushback. I'm not saying we won't get pushback, but so far we haven't. But when you think about it, who's against saving lives?
Well, I would think maybe the restaurant industry that wants their bikers to just be able to use whatever type of bike they can get a hold of, no matter what kind of battery might be there. I'm sure that these bikes are used bikes, and if they're used bikes, they're used batteries. Do you see the restaurant industry pushing back at all with respect to forcing new bikes and new batteries?
Well, I would be surprised, in fact, shocked. I would be appalled if the restaurant industry pushed back against this. And I don't think that'll happen, because I believe that restaurants, they don't want people to get hurt. They don't want people to get killed. I'm sure they want their workers and other people to be safe. So I couldn't imagine why they would push back against this.
So when is this coming up for a vote, or when do you think?
Well, in the Assembly, the bills have been referred to the Consumer Affairs Committee. So I got to convince the Consumer Affairs Committee to put it on an upcoming agenda. Assuming the bills are approved by that committee, it would then go to my committee, the Codes Committee. And so it goes through several steps. In the Assembly, you have to jump through a lot of hoops. In the Senate, I can't speak for Senator Krueger, but I'm hoping that the bills will come up for votes as well. And by the way, this issue is being tackled on every level of government, because I know the City Council is considering legislation on this, and just this morning I heard that Congressman Richie Torres, my congressman, is introducing national legislation to at least provide better standards to deal with this issue. So I think we have to tackle this on every level of government because it could affect people everywhere. It's not just a New York issue, although it's very prevalent here. You know, people see and actually complain constantly about all these bikes and scooters driving all over the place in every which direction on sidewalks. It's a real issue, but the bigger issue is that we don't want people to die because of these batteries.
What else you been working on? I know we haven't seen you for a little bit. What's new in your neighborhood? What's on the agenda? I know I saw something about those trucks that are on the Henry Hudson. I saw that.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's that's an issue which is actually a citywide issue. The specific problem is that on the Henry Hudson Parkway Service Road, a number of campers are now parked, and I think people are living in them. In fact, I know in at least one of them, somebody is living in them. And that's not supposed to be the case. But we have the issue of the trucks in many areas in our district on Webster Avenue, on Nereid Avenue, Overpass, and a number of other places, the Major Deegan. And the city is really not doing anything about this issue of these vehicles parked where they're not supposed to park, creating litter, possibly creating other problems. There's no enforcement or very little enforcement. And we've reached out to the various police precincts. I know they have their hands full. I know there aren't a limited list supply of vehicles to tow these gigantic vehicles. We simply want them not to park in these places. They're unsightly and they cause other problems. So we're trying to address that, both myself, our local councilman, Eric Dinowitz, because it's certainly a city issue, and we've received numerous complaints about it. The issue on Henry Hudson Parkway is particularly irritating because the campers are just there as if it's their private property. It's almost as if it's a trailer park, and it's not.
Well, good luck with that issue as well as the batteries and the very important both issues. And hopefully you can come back again in maybe a month or two and give us an update of what's been going on. Sure,
I'd love to. Thank you for having me.
All right. Today's verdict. We'll be right back right after these messages. All right. Welcome back to today's verdict. I'm your host, David Lesh. We're going to be talking about a new organization, Guns Down, Life Up, which really is educating our youth on interactions with law enforcement groups and making sure they do the right thing. Youth, and we have with us today Gilberto Gilly Delgado. We also have a gentleman, Christian, here as well. How are you doing today, Gilly?
I'm doing excellent, my brother, man. How are you today?
Doing well. Tell me a little bit about your organization. What's it about, and what made you decide to get involved?
Well, Guns Down, Life Up is a community-based organization, cure violence. We started at Ceasefire back in 2013 when they implemented it from Chicago into New York City. We are violence interrupters, and obviously now I'm a hospital responder. I started with SOS South Bronx. Now I'm at Guns Down, Life Up. So basically we respond to the gas report, anything that comes in, a gunshot, assault, or stab wound, we respond. We are based inside the hospital. So what happens is if there's a gas, which is a gunshot, assault, stab wound, the ambulance comes for the patient, police stays for the crime scene, doctors patch them up. But who's there for the brother that wants to retaliate? Who's there for the mom that needs questions answered? That's where we come in. On top of that, we have prevention, intervention, and community mobilization, where we go back out into the communities and we talk to the youth and the adolescents, where we work on convincing them that the gun is not the actual answer. And we offer all alternatives as far as construction, OSHA training, fashion, music, and several other things, as well as we have a summer and winter youth program as well. And we have court and probation mandate kids, which I'm actually on my way to court with one of my guys to prevent incarceration, where we are an alternative to incarceration.
Well, let me ask you a question. How do you teach, different rights that the youth have when they encounter a police officer or law enforcement? How do you let them know what you can or you cannot do?
Well, thanks to the Legal Aid Society, they come and they hold seminars in our office, and they actually have pamphlets and teaching the kids how to moderate a situation, how to learn how to be as peaceful as possible. I'm gonna come right in, as peaceful as possible, and to know their rights, and to really, you know, don't don't give the officer no more than what he can't handle, because in a situation where it's a confrontation between the community and police, we already know that it's always something that they look at our younger generation as perpetrators off the rip. So we teach them how to be patient, how to be calm, to comply, and to answer the question. I want to utilize my constitutional rights on certain questions that you're going to ask me.
Now, Christian, you're a senior mentor for youth services, am I correct?
Yes, I serve as the senior youth representative.
So tell me some of your functions. What do you do for the organization?
Yes. So as Gilly said, Guns Down Life Up is New York City public hospital's response to gun violence. We started Guns Down Life Up officially at Lincoln Hospital in 2017. So I was one of the first 20 youth to be a part of Guns Down Life Up, where we have our prevention component, which deals with the youth. We have an after-school program for young people between the ages of 8 to 18, where they come and they do music, media, fashion. We've created peace songs that have been played on the radio. We have made T-shirts that have been put into Dr. J's when it was in existence, and it was in throughout all Dr. J's throughout New York City, and sold out within the first couple of weeks to months of them being in the stores. And we also have our media, which deals with, as we're here on the news with you all, we partnered with the Bronx Documentary and did some photography classes. We're still doing videography and editing. So they're just a lot of fun and engaging things that we do. We also have the all year round summer youth and winter youth employment program that allows our participants to get paid for the work that they are doing in the community. We have community mobilization. That's where also I come in and I go out in the community speaking on the different issues and topics of the day that so I just go and represent Guns Down as their youth representative, but also in other capacities as well.
Where do we find the organization? Well, let's say, I was between 8 and 18, let's say a 13, 14-year-old, and I'm having some problems in the neighborhood with either, bullies or police officers. And I want to find you. I want to know what to do. Where do they go?
They come right to our hospital. We are hospital based. So we have every profession in the hospital. We are located at Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx, and we're looking to expand. Actually, we're getting ready to expand to all the other 10 hospitals, so that we're not just in the Bronx, but we're also in Harlem. We're also in Brooklyn. We currently have people that come from Manhattan and Brooklyn to the Bronx because they're noticing that there are not many other organizations. There's not really any organizations like us in their communities. So they're coming from far and near just to be a part of an organization like this. So I think that is very key. But we're located in the Bronx at Lincoln Hospital in B75, where we have access to all the facilities at the hospital, the auditorium, the conference rooms, where we're allowed to do all these engaging, fun activities with these youth participants.
Gilly, let me ask you a question. When you go to the hospital, are you going right to see the victim sometimes? Or are you going to see the person who was actually did the shooting? Who do you go to see?
No, well, the ironic how we service both sides of the spectrum, right? So once we get a page, we have a pager like the doctors. So it's a trauma one page. So once the page comes across the air and it's a gunshot assault style, we immediately respond to the hospital where we're at the patient's bedside, and again we service the family and the brother or sister that's on retaliation mode, and then we are always at their bedside, and then we follow up, because we believe that once a person suffers those situations, we just don't let them right back out into the street corner. So we have to offer him different alternatives and situations to better his or her life. Then ironically, we also do get probation and court mandates. So we do go to court for sometimes the actual shooter, We don't mix the both. No one knows. It's very confidential under HIPAA law and under the basic law. And what we figure is that, you know, it's a mental health situation, what's going on with the gun violence, and then how do we cure it? Well, we cure it by supporting our people and always being on with them and offering all the alternatives and basically offering them, you know, even entrepreneurship or even what they want to get into. Like, you know, we whatever they want to do productively in life, we support it and we follow through with them throughout, you know, throughout their time with us. And afterwards as well, we don't let them, you know, we don't stop. You know, we stay with them all the way. We're a mentoring group, we're big brother situation, and you know, we're just trying to help society be better. Mhm.
Christian, is it expanding? Do you have more and more places that you're going? Before I let you go, tell me a little bit about like where this is heading in your opinion.
Well, we have been at Lincoln Hospital now for the last 5 years. Last July, we celebrated our 5th year anniversary. And James Dobbins, our director, is going into a new position. And he works, he's the assistant director of community affairs for New York City Health and Hospitals Lincoln, but now he is going into a role where he is the community violence initiative director for New York City Health and Hospitals. So with that new title, that allows for the expansion of this program, but also other programs so that the hospitals can have a better response on how to not just, you know, James always uses the quote, the doctors, the ambulance comes, they take the patient to the hospital, the doctors do a good job of patching them up, but what happens to the person after they are shot, assaulted, or stabbed? So that is really what his job and the role of Guns Down is to give them alternatives and resources to stop them from retaliation and to further have those kind of issues. So I see that this program, we're already starting to expand, but I see that we're going to expand to every other site that is in New York City Health and Hospitals through now, not just James's elevation, but also through the different things that we've been doing in the community. People are seeing the work that we're doing, and they're waiting for us to come to a hospital near them. Because we have people that travel just to come. So they're waiting for us. So yeah, I see an expansion coming for our program in the different sites.
Well, it sounds like you guys are doing some great work. Gilly and Christian, I want to thank you both for being on. Stay with us. I want to talk to you for a second. But stay with us. Today's Verdict has so much more right after this. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and of course, you, the viewers, for watching. If you have a topic or an issue you'd like to see on a future edition of Today's Verdict, feel free to email me at davidlesh@bronxit.org. Until the next time, know your issues, reach a verdict. See you in 2 weeks.